It is day 47 of President Trump's war on Iran. Today, two senior Pakistani officials told MS Now that the second round of peace talks between the United States and Iran will likely happen next week, but no date has officially been set. Both sides are reportedly weighing a 2-week extension of the ceasefire, which is set to expire April 21st. However, an Iranian military commander told a state-run outlet that the ongoing naval blockade of the country's ports was a precursor of violation of that ceasefire. He also vowed straight retaliation if it continued to create, quote, insecurity for Iranian commercial vessels and oil tankers. According to U.S. Central Command, yesterday, an Iranian cargo vessel tried to evade the blockade and was successfully redirected by a U.S.-guided missile destroyer. Since Monday, they said 10 separate ships have been turned around and 0 ships have passed through at all. Meanwhile, thousands of American forces will be arriving in the region in the coming days after being ordered to travel there just a few weeks ago. We got a lot to cover, so let's bring in our nightcap. And because I'm in the District of Columbia, you are getting an awesome group. Peter Baker is here, Chief White House Correspondent for The New York Times. Mark Short joins us, former White House Legislative Affairs Director during Trump's first administration. Now he is Board Chairman for Advancing American Freedom. Nayyera Haq joins us, former White House Senior Director and former State Department Senior Advisor. She is now the Assistant Dean for the Syracuse Maxwell School. And Daniel Coe, former White House Deputy Cabinet Secretary under Biden. And if you live in the state of Massachusetts, you know who this man is because he is running for Congress there. All right, we have a lot to cover. Nayyera, I turn to you first. What is your read? Is the U.S. blockade complicating negotiations?
It's unclear what the negotiations were really around anyway. When you have the Vice President of the United States showing up without any preconditions or anything worked out in advance, and that first round, they walk away and say, hey, okay, I guess we're just going to do a blockade. Narratively, though, I would say that this does give Trump a little bit more wiggle room. It makes the United States is now in the position where it is blocking the Strait of Hormuz. It is not Iran blocking the Strait of Hormuz. And that's the challenge we have here, that none of these negotiations are unfolding in any traditional way, any way that others are able to hold people accountable or track in a meaningful way. It is about narrative one-upmanship. And so we'll see how long that lasts for the United States.
So during the last round of talks, Vice President J.D. Vance suggested a 20-year moratorium on Iran nuclear activity. They countered and said, no, how about 3? But now the president in the last day told the New York Post, nope, I've been saying they can't have nuclear weapons, not now, not ever. I don't like 20 years. Yeah. With the president making public statements like that, does that make the negotiating harder for his team?
Well, I mean, look, yes and no, right? On the one hand, you never know for sure what the president's going to say. If you're a negotiator going out there, you never know for sure, mark this in Congress, whether you'll be able to make a deal that will stick. But on the other hand, I think it also, from their point of view, may help them because they can say, look, I got that guy back there. You know, don't give me this 3-year, 5-year stuff. We got to do something more serious because I got to sell it to him. So you can see how that could play out. I think the 20-year thing is fascinating, though, because it's a better deal than Obama got, but it's on the same basic concept, which is how to buy time rather than simply shut it off forever. And Trump is right when he said, I don't favor that, because that's what he's historically has said, that he doesn't favor any timeline. And the idea that it came up at the negotiation is a really striking thing, because it's not something he talked about before.
Mark, I feel you agreeing. I feel you disagreeing. There's a brow that's furrowed. What's happening in your head?
Well, I feel like, yes, just as Peter said, the president has repeatedly said that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. He didn't say they could have one in 20 years. He said they never have one. So I think this is consistent with his position. But I also think Iran has broken every deal that they've had for the last 47 years. So why would Republicans basically, I think they'd open themselves up to the same criticisms that we gave Obama for the deal that he struck. So I think the president's taking the right position here.
But unless you wipe out the country, won't any deal be a bad deal? If what you're saying is Iran's broken every deal in the last 47 years, what would success look like for the U.S.?
I don't think it means wiping out the country, Stephanie. I think that there's a lot of people who have wanted to have an uprising in Iran.
Absolutely.
I think that there was actually a Green Revolution in 2009.
I don't mean to get to that. I wasn't trying to make the president's end of civilization point. But what I'm trying to say is, if Iran has broken every deal over the last 47 years, what deal would be good?
I don't think you can trust this particular regime. So I think it's going to be hard to find a deal.
So how do you end? This is the challenge, right? As a former diplomat, the military comes in as a tool of war, a tool of pressure to create foreign policy by a different means. At some point, you have to go back to the foreign policy and the negotiation and diplomacy. So how does that happen? Everything ends in some kind of negotiated resolution, or you just maintain a war posture forever. I mean, that's essentially what the Israeli position is.
Well, look,
Netanyahu has run a government that is constantly on war footing, and they will not cut deals with anybody. That has a significant toll on your domestic population.
Sure it does. Let's be honest, though. Iran's been at war for 47 years.
And it's had a significant toll on its
called for
population.
the extinction of Israel and the United States. So it would be kind of blind for us to sit here and say, hey, well, they're not really at war. They have been for 47 years.
But we have not been directly at war with Iran in this way. That's a huge difference.
They've been killing Westerners for 47 years.
The United States has not been invading and attacking Iran militarily and kinetically in the last,
But there's a political subtext here, which is how stupid J.D. Vance looks in all of this. Like, let's play a little game here, which is old J.D. versus new J.D., okay? Old J.D. claimed that Trump might be America's Hitler. Now he's literally standing by while Trump is making genocidal statements about Iran, basically fulfilling what old J.D. prophesized. He said he'd support a classmate. He did support a classmate who was transitioning. Now he's calling gender transition surgery mutilation.
Yes, but let's focus on Iran.
But what I'm saying is, in this whole point, if we're looking at the subtext of what could happen in 2028, J.D. Vance is looking increasingly impotent, powerless to control Donald Trump. He continuously tries to reinvent himself, and he will once again, no matter how you couch it, he's going to find a way to try to reinvent himself, and he's going to continue to look like an idiot in front of the American people. And Trump is not helping him in that regard.
So you've got Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the president's son-in-law, who does not work for our government, taking lead in these talks. And I want to share a Bloomberg headline when they were talking about this, where they write, America's amateur diplomats are set up to fail. As somebody who worked in the first administration, are you surprised that Marco Rubio is not more involved in this?
Well, I don't know that he's not more involved. I think he's not.
He was at a UFC fight on Saturday night. That's fair to say. He's not in the game.
I think he's been very involved in America's foreign policy. I think he understands the pitfalls of this one. And so he's happy to say, hey, Jared and you and Steve go out in front on this one. And so, look, I think that the president obviously has a lot of confidence in Jared. He had him in the first administration. I think he's gotten fairly unfairly a lot of credit for the Abraham Accords. But look, even though I'm supportive of the president's kinetic actions here, Stephanie, I truly am, I think there is a concern about having two real estate developers be your lead negotiators here who are not Senate confirmed. Because if you're going to end up striking a deal, the Senate and Congress should have an ability to say, what was that deal? We have an ability to call witnesses and people who are Senate confirmed to explain that. And I think if you're having two real estate developers be your lead negotiators, I think that's a concern.
So that story goes on to say the following. It says the amateurism is a problem all by itself and is a part of Trump's full-bore assault against professionalism across government. Do you agree with that? Like, what are the repercussions of this? We've talked about this a lot. Trump administration, in first time around, including Mark, is very different from who the president is surrounded by this time.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is that Jared is actually the most experienced diplomat in that room, right? J.D. Vance was in the Senate for 2 years before he became vice president, not heavily involved in diplomacy during that time. Witkoff obviously is just starting in the last year to dip his toe in the water and hasn't got a lot of experience. And they don't use the government's traditional experts on Iran. This is not some new problem for us. We've got people who understand the country and understand the people there. Having said that, what Jared Kushner would tell you, because I've heard him say this in the past, is that the old way didn't work. And so why not try people who don't have traditional experience? I see that, but the results haven't really worked there. I mean, so far, the Russia war was supposed to be over 24 hours. That obviously hasn't happened. This obviously hasn't gone anywhere in terms of Iran, either the negotiations before the war started or the ones right now. And negotiations are hard. I mean, it took 2 years, I think, for the Obama administration to come up with a deal that a lot of people didn't think was good enough. So how are you going to come up with a better deal in 21 hours?